The next generation of video game console hardware will be here soon, and at that point, the Xbox 360 will go from being last gen to like last gen, which is why this seems like the last real good period, and I think this really started in mid 2019, but the last good period to be collecting for the Xbox 360 when the prices are as low as they possibly can be. And I made a video about this last year. I think it still strikes true right now. We're still at a point where prices are low. It's just the supply is getting increasingly smaller. I recently went to a GameStop that was quite a ways away from where I live, but I happened to be in the area anyways. I kind of scoped out on their website in advance what games I was looking for. Really, there was about 30 to 40 Xbox 360 games I was seeking out. However, the inventory for these I knew was going to be just terribly awful, and they were going to be hard to come by, and that was the case. So I found 8 of them that were available at a GameStop that I would be near. And then of course with that buy 2 get 2 or buy 1 get 1, different promotions they've been running on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 games, or even just any games under $10 in general periodically. With that promotion going on, I was able to actually get all 8 of these for just $16. So pre-tax, that evens out to be $2 each. And there's some in here that I've really been looking for some time. One of them surprisingly being Chaotic Shadow Warriors, a game that I know isn't any good, but it just appealed to me in its weirdness and the fact that it's like a Pokemon clone more or less on the Xbox 360, and for that reason I just wanted to give it a try. It's always a very cheap game. I probably could have picked it up on eBay, sub $10, but when I'm on a hunt for a game like this, like to find in person, of course, I end up paying only around $2 for it now. With that said, I think there's absolutely no harm to going in on 360 or PlayStation 3 collecting when you consider the fact that I don't think the prices on these games are going to get any lower than they're at right now without them being simply given away for free. I know last year I had a pawn shop that I went to that I bought a whole bunch. They were just flat priced at $1 each, didn't matter what kind of game it was. I got some relatively more rare games there for $1 just because everything was $1 because they were trying to clear it out. So if you see any stores like that, or what's left of stock at GameStop, if you're in an area where maybe it's a larger GameStop that has more stock like I had, definitely pick them up. And the reason why I think 360 games are going to go up at least somewhat in price in the future, and I'm not talking that any of these games are going to be worth $30, $40 in the future, because I don't think that's the case, but for them to go from being worth $2 to $10 each, I think is very realistic. And the reason why I think the 360 is poised to see this kind of price increase in 5 or so years is, for one, because of the backwards compatibility, which not all of these games are backwards compatible, but the fact that there's the potential for that, and then not all these games will end up being remastered or re-released in some fashion, just because some of these are more obscure titles. Saboteur is something I've been looking for as well for some time, and it is an obscure title that I don't think EA is ever going to re-release in the future. Just kind of a cool open world game in a really obscure time period that not many games are based around. So outside of backwards compatibility and a lack of re-releases, the big thing that keeps me coming back to the 360 that the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox didn't have to drive up their values is the fact that while all of these games sold millions of copies, you have to keep in mind that we were also in an era where games were being sold digitally. A lot of these games were put up for sale on the digital marketplace, and among those millions of copies sold, some of them inevitably were sold digitally, meaning that there was less physical copies printed than you might have seen in the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox era. And in some of these cases, the digital copies are actually still available for sale in the Xbox 360 marketplace or via the Xbox One, but that's oftentimes not the best way to buy the games unless it's on sale. Take something like Deus Ex, for example, that I picked up in the 360. That game is ran on sale, I swear, like once a month for $3 digitally or $2 or just some bargain bin price digitally, very inexpensive, still available in the Xbox 360 marketplace. Some of these other games, though, are still available in the Xbox 360 marketplace, but they never go on sale. The publishers just kind of forget that they're there. They leave them at, say, $40 MSRP, and then the prices never change, and paying $40 for a digital Xbox 360 game in 2020 doesn't really make any sense. It isn't something anybody's realistically going to do. So if they can pick up the disc for, $10 or $15 in the future, that's going to be the more appealing option. The other thing that really interests me is licensed games, something that I don't really have a lot of here, but licensed games, take something like the B Movie, for instance. There's going to be different licensing issues that are going to result in those games being delisted. Like, I swear at one point in time, I had Meet the Robinsons via Games with Gold, the old Disney game, but I can't seem to find it on the store or anything anymore. I don't know if that got delisted. So I expect a lot of those licensed games, for whatever reason, to have their licenses run out either on the music or just on the property or the voice actors' rights. I have no idea. And for them to get delisted at some point and become, unpurchasable. So I think those licensed games in particular, many of them not really very good games, are something to pay attention to, because I think that soon the only way to play those will be via the disc. And of course, we've seen what that can do in a really exaggerated sense with NCAA Football 14, where the game is now over $100 and consistently was selling for $80 even before because it's been delisted. And there was a whole spike with the DuckTales game when that got delisted. So these games end up getting delisted because they have different licensed properties in that run out, are also a particular thing to pay attention to. So even if you see something like the Bee Movie and you're like, well, I'd never play that, which actually the Bee Movie, for what it is, does look like kind of an appealing game to me. It's something that I would check out if I ran across a physical copy. They probably will go up in value just because they'll become tougher to find as time goes on. And I think that other games, that just maybe they sound stupid and just obscure in nature, say Madagascar Karting, I think those games will inevitably go up in price as they become increasingly more obscure as time goes on. And I think back to like 2 or 3 years ago where I was just turning over 360 games nonstop. I'd buy lots at Facebook Marketplace, and then I would split them up and put them on eBay, and I was making, like $30, $40 per lot in profit. And that was a lot of fun to do, to be able to play the games, for maybe a half an hour or something, just kind of check them out, maybe get a few easy achievements on them before I turned them over and resold them. But there's so many games that I went through in that process that I'm just kind of kicking myself for getting rid of now, because I've seen how maybe I feel like they have a future where they could have risen in price more if I'd have held on to them, but I was just turning them over within the same week. And I have some regrets about selling that stuff. And it's the reason why I haven't taken anything in for trading at GameStop anytime recently, just because I've kind of seen the way the prices have rose on so many games. And I just feel like what GameStop is paying is just simply not worth it, and I'd rather hold on to them and kind of speculate on the price. See a few console generations away what the games are worth, because I saw what's happened with the GameCube, even to a lesser extent with the PlayStation 2. So I'm willing to hold on to these and kind of take some chances. And I think that the backwards compatibility of the next gen consoles will kind of create more of a rush to play some of these older games again, because they'll become more accessible. But then of course they also have to have a way to physically obtain a copy unless it's available digitally for sale. So that's my thoughts on kind of the future of game collecting when it comes to the Xbox 360, which I think is a console that's being massively underrated right now and just totally overlooked. And of course the stock is getting to be harder to find, but I think if you can find games for sale and they're $1 or $2 a piece, I really don't think you can go wrong. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I'll see you in the next video.